The day I went to prison. My wife married the man who framed me. The day I got out. She sobbed and begged me to take her back. She swore the marriage was just a cover, that she was still pure. I laughed and walked away. The next morning, I had their home, home, stripped bare. Every piece of furniture, every memory, every lie she'd lived in for 3 years. She collapsed in the empty living room, screaming. But I didn't stop there. I had a memory card, a recording, and 3 years of silence to break. Jason Gu thought he'd buried me. Linda Lynn thought she could choose both sides. They were both wrong. Because the truth doesn't disappear, it waits. And when it surfaces, it doesn't ask for forgiveness. It demands justice. The day they loaded me into the prison van, Linda Lynn was standing outside the Civil Affairs Bureau in that red dress I knew better than the back of my hand. The guy next to her, her partner, Jason Gu. I watched them walk out through the van window, one after the other. Jason Gu was holding two bright red marriage certificates. Linda Lynn glanced down at them, panicked, and never looked back. The officer escorting me nudged me. Ryan Shun, quit staring. I looked away, twisting the cuffs on my wrists. The cold metal felt exactly like the divorce papers she'd handed me the night before. She'd been standing outside the detention center visiting room back then, talking to me through the glass. Ryan Shun, sign it first. It's just procedure. I'll pick you up and bring you home once the mission's over. I asked her, what kind of mission requires you to divorce me the same day I get locked up? Her eyes were red. I can't explain it. Just trust me this once. I believed her. She was my wife. After all, the woman I'd loved for 7 years. I signed the papers. Her hands were shaking when she took them. I thought she was hurting for me. Now I know she was just scared I'd see right through her. When the van pulled away from the Civil Affairs Bureau block, Jason Goose suddenly looked up and spotted me inside. He didn't flinch. He even smiled at me. That lazy winter's smirk. Sitting in that van, I realized for the first time these 3 years in lockup wouldn't just break my body. They'd break my heart, too. I was convicted of unauthorized access to police systems and disclosure of operational information. The evidence was airtight. Access logs on my computer. Data sent from my home network an hour before the op went down. Jason Gu testified personally. He said I resented Linda Lynn for working constant overtime and used my tech skills to mess with her cases. Linda Lynn never defended me at the trial. The judge asked her, do you believe the defendant, Ryan Shun, had the ability to commit this crime? She stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, technically, yes. That one sentence killed every last one of my defenses. I got 3 years. She didn't show up to see me off that day. She was too busy getting her marriage license. First night in lockup, I lay on the hard bunk, the clang of the cell door ringing in my ears. Old Lou, my cellmate, asked me, what did you do to get in here, buddy? I said, my wife and her partner set me up. He snorted, you better watch your back when you get out. Then, I closed my eyes and fished a tiny memory card on my pillow. I'd hidden it in the lining of my collar the last time I changed clothes. Before lockup, it held a full backup of system logs and a recording I never got the chance to turn in that night. I was supposed to help Linda Lynn track down an unusual login. She said there might be a mole on the team. She didn't dare use the office computers. So she asked me to trace the proxy address on our home air-gap device. I found it. The proxy didn't lead to me. It led to Jason Gu. I was just about to tell her when the cops busted down the door. Jason Gu stood at the back of the crowd staring at me calm as anything and said, Ryan Shun, don't fight it. In that second, I knew I'd been framed, but I didn't get a chance to say anything. The evidence was swapped. My computer was seized, and Linda Lynn was looking at me not with trust, but with doubt. In 3 years, I never wrote her a single letter. She came to visit 3 times. First time, she said, Ryan Shun, the marriage between Ryan Shun and I is just a cover for the mission. Don't overthink it. Second time, she said, when you get out, we can start over. Third time, she said, can you stop looking at me like that? This is hard for me. 2. Every single time, I only asked her one question. Have you reopened the old case? Every time, she stayed silent. I got it. It wasn't that she couldn't dig up the truth. She just didn't want to because if she kept digging, she'd have to admit she'd thrown her own husband in jail with her own hands, then married the real killer that exact same day. The day I got out of prison, the sky was crystal clear. I slung a beat-up duffel over my shoulder and walked through the gates. Linda Lynn was standing right there, white button down, long hair pulled back. She looked just as sharp and put together as she did 3 years ago. Only the ring on her finger was different. The second she saw me, her eyes welled up. Ryan Shun. I froze. She took 2 steps forward, then stopped dead. I'm here to take you home. I stared at her. Which home? Her face drained of color. For a second. Our home. I laughed. The one you've been shacking up in with Jason Gu for 3 years. Tears burst down her cheeks. It's not what you think. Getting the marriage license was just an assignment. I'm still clean. I almost snort laughed when I heard that. 3 years. She made me wait 3 years behind bars. And this was the explanation I got. I'm still clean. I pulled a document out of my bag and handed it to her. She glanced down, and her hands started shaking instantly. It was an eviction notice. I said, I paid for that house in full before we got married. You and Jason Gu have crashed there for 3 years. Be out by 12 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. She snapped her head up. Ryan Shun, do you really have to do this? I held her gaze. Linda Lynn, didn't you move out the day I went to prison? She sobbed and grabbed my sleeve. I never betrayed you. I had a really good reason. I pried her fingers off my arm one by one. Save your excuses for the court. I turned and walked away. Her heart-shattering scream came from behind me. Ryan Shun, I waited 3 years for you. I paused for a second, but didn't look back. You waited 3 years for me. I died 1,000 times inside those walls over the same 3 years. My first meal after getting out, I didn't go to any house. I hit up a noodle shop on the west side of town. The owner, Jojo, saw me and dropped his strainer straight into the boiling broth. Ryan Shun. I nodded. Uncle Joe. 1 beef noodle soup. He stared at me for ages, eyes glistening. He kept muttering over and over. You're out. That's all that matters. You're out. Jojo used to be Linda Lynn's informant and the key witness I tracked down before I got locked up. He vanished out of nowhere 3 years ago. At the trial, the prosecution said he'd left town to lay low and couldn't testify. But I always knew something was off about that. When he set my bowl down, he locked up the shop. It was just the 2 of us inside. He sat down across from me and lowered his voice. Are you still looking into what happened 3 years ago? My hand froze mid-chopstick lift. Uncle Joe, what do you know? His face went pale. The night before everything went down 3 years ago, I saw Jason go meet a guy called Brother Tony. You got framed the next day. I looked up at him. Why didn't you say anything back then? Jojo gave a bitter laugh. My daughter was being followed. Someone sent me photos. Said if I opened my mouth, she'd be dead. I set my chopsticks down. Who threatened you? He shook his head. No clue. But I found out later the number that sent the text was linked to a burner phone Jason Gu used to have. He pulled a beat-up envelope out from under the counter as he spoke. I didn't dare give it to you. And I didn't dare give it to Officer Lynn either. She'd already married Jason Gu by then. I was scared she wouldn't believe me. 3 things were inside the envelope. A blurry photo, a USB drive with an audio recording, and a bank transfer screenshot. The sender was Jason Gu's cousin. The recipient was Brother Tony. Amount was 200.000 yuan, and the memo said payment for goods. I put the items away carefully. Uncle Joe, I'll hand these over to my lawyer. He panicked. Don't do anything reckless. Jason Gu got promoted to deputy captain now, and Linda Lynn still has his back. You just got out. You can't take them on right now. I smiled a little. I didn't just learn how to bite my tongue during those 3 years inside. Right then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Linda Lynn's voice came through the line. Where are you? I didn't answer. Her voice sharpened with urgency. Ryan Shun, cut the crap. We'll talk about the house when we get back. Jason Gu's on a mission right now. He can't just move out of the blue. I asked, is living in my house part of his mission? 2. She went silent for a second. That apartment's close to the bureau. Good for work. I laughed. Linda Lynn, you really do have everything figured out. Her voice softened. Ryan Shun, I know you're hurt, but things were so complicated back then. Jason and I got married to get close to the head of a crime ring. The guy only trusted people who came as a couple. I asked, "So, you turned that fake marriage real and moved into my wedding apartment?" She panicked. "No, nothing happened between us. Nothing at all." "Then why didn't you stay in the safe house the Bureau arranged for you?" She went quiet again. I kept going. "Why use my house? Why make me sign the divorce papers? Why didn't you reopen my case in 3 whole years?" Only heavy breathing came through the line. I said, "See, you can't even answer that." She started crying. Because I was scared. Scared of what? Scared the mission would get blown. Scared Jason would get hurt. Scared you'd hate me when you got out. I laughed. "Did you ever stop to think I might not survive in there?" She went completely silent. I hung up. 30 minutes later, I showed up at the law firm. Ethan Sue was my college classmate. The only person who believed me before I went to prison. He slid a stack of documents across the table. "Everything you asked for is ready. Property deed, payment records for the apartment purchase, prenuptial property notarization, receipts for all furniture and appliances, plus the calculated rent they owe for illegally occupying the place for the 3 years you were inside." I flipped through them. Everything was there. Ethan Sue looked at me. "You really want to kick this off today?" I said, "Today?" He nodded. "I'll arrange for movers and notaries to go over tomorrow morning." I said, "Wait, we're not waiting for them to move out on their own." Ethan Sue laughed. "The apartment's yours. The eviction notice has already been delivered. If they don't move out by the deadline, we do a formal eviction per the law. Their personal stuff will be packed, logged, and stored in a warehouse temporarily." I set the envelope Joe gave me on the table. "One more thing." Ethan Sue opened it, his face darkening slowly. "If this is real, you've got a shot at reopening your case." I said, "Getting my conviction overturned isn't all I want." He looked up. I said, slow and deliberate, "I want Jason Gu to pay for what he did. And I want Linda Lynn to see with her own eyes what kind of trash the man she protected for 3 years really is." Ethan Sue was quiet for a moment. "What about her?" I stared out the window. "She's not part of my plan anymore." That night, I checked into a hotel. I'd barely finished the check-in process when Linda Lynn showed up. She stood at my door, eyes red and puffy. "Ryan Shun, we need to talk." I said, "My lawyer will be in touch." She shoved her hand against the door to stop me from closing it. "Don't do this. I know the apartment's yours, but we have memories there." I looked right at her. "The day you moved in with Jason Gu. Every last one of those memories was tainted." Her face went deathly pale. "I told you we didn't." I cut her off. "It doesn't matter if you did or not." She froze. I said, "What matters is you chose him." Right before the door clicked shut, I heard her sobbing. "I did it for the mission." I laughed on my side of the door. "Mission? Fine. Tomorrow I'll give her a mission. 2. Watch the apartment she lived in for 3 years get emptied out. Piece by piece." 10 o'clock a.m. the next day, I stood under the apartment building that was supposed to be our wedding home. 220 square meters, right in the city center. I bought it before we got married. Supervised every step of the renovation myself. Back then, Linda Lynn said she wanted a bright, sunny living room. So, I knocked down an entire wall to install floor-to-ceiling windows. She said police work was exhausting and she wanted a bath when she got home. So, I go to the master bathroom to put in a heated jacuzzi tub. Turns out I spent 3 years in prison while Jason Gu got to enjoy everything that was mine. 6 guys from a moving company showed up. 2 from the notary office, plus Ethan Sue. I rang the doorbell. Jason Gu answered. He was wearing my gray loungewear. I recognized it instantly. I bought it before I went to prison. He frowned the second he saw me. "Ryan Shun, can you just leave us alone?" I stared at the clothes on his body. "Take it off." He froze. "What?" I said, "It's mine." Jason Gu's face dropped immediately. "You just got out and you're already being this petty?" I didn't bother arguing with him. I turned to the notary. "Log this. Resident Jason Gu is an unauthorized possession of the property owner's clothing." The notary nodded. Jason's face burned with embarrassment. He lowered his voice. "Ryan Shun, don't think you can call the shots now that you're out. You know exactly why you ended up in prison 3 years ago, don't you?" I stared right back at him. "You know better than I do." His eyes flickered. Ethan Sue stepped forward and held up the documents. "Mr. Gu, this property is Mr. Ryan Shun's personal premarital asset. You and Ms. Linda Lynn have already received the eviction notice with a deadline of 12 o'clock p.m. today. We are now here to conduct a property inventory and enforce the eviction in accordance with the law." Jason Goose sneered. "Does Linda Lynn know about this?" I said. "She will soon enough." The movers walked in. First thing they hauled out was the piano in the living room. It was the wedding gift I got Linda Lynn. She couldn't play, but she said it looked nice sitting there. After I went to prison, I heard Jason Goo brought his coworkers over for parties all the time. They treated my place like his personal lounge. Second was the wedding photo on the wall. I told the workers to take it straight down and toss it in a cardboard box. Jason Goo stood off to the side, his face getting darker by the second. "Ryan Shun, are you out of your mind? When Linda comes back and sees this, what do you think she'll say?" I said, "What she thinks is none of my business." 11.30. Linda Lynn burst through the door. She was in her uniform, hair a mess. The second she saw the half-empty living room, she froze. "Ryan Shun, what the hell are you doing?" I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window watching her. Moving out, her eyes welled up instantly. "This is our home." I said. "Wrong. It's my house." She ran at me and grabbed my wrist. "You can't do this. Our wedding photos here. The sofa we bought together. The bathtub you installed for me. That gardenia plant you planted with your own hands." I glanced at the balcony. The gardenia was long dead. Jason Goo's cigarette butts were stuffed in the planter. I pointed at it. "You mean this?" She followed my gaze, her face going white as a sheet. Jason's face shifted. He hurried to explain. "I didn't know that plant was yours." Linda Lynn didn't even look at him. She walked over slowly, squatted down in front of the planter, and picked out the cigarette butts with trembling fingers. In that moment, she finally seemed to realize that the memories she kept talking about had long been ruined by the very person she'd handed them to. I turned to the movers. "Keep going." The master bedroom door was opened. Jason Goo's coat was on the bed. In the nightstand, there was a photo of Linda Lynn and Jason Goo. They were in casual clothes, leaning close to each other, the ocean in the background. I picked up the photo and looked at Linda Lynn. She panicked. "That was taken when we were on a mission for cover." I nodded. "So, getting the marriage license was a mission. Taking photos was a mission. Living in my house was a mission. Sleeping in my bed was a mission." 2. Her voice shook. "We didn't sleep together." Jason Goose spoke up, his voice low. "Ryan Shun, don't insult Linda." I laughed. "You're wearing my clothes, living in my house, sleeping in my master bedroom, and now you're lecturing me about insult?" His face turned livid. The notary recorded every single moment on camera. Linda Lynn finally snapped out her days. She dashed right up to me, voice shaking. "You're collecting evidence." I shrugged. "Habit." 3 years inside taught me to save proof for every single word exchanged. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You weren't like this before." I held her gaze. "I trusted you too much back then." The second the words left my mouth, all the strength drained out of her. She had to grab the wall to stay on her feet. 12 on the dot. The apartment was almost entirely cleared out. All my stuff was gone. Their personal belongings were packed, logged, and stashed in a temporary storage unit. Last, the locksmith changed the door locks. Linda Lynn stood in the empty living room, trembling all over. She stared at the faint, faded mark of the wedding photo on the wall, suddenly screamed, and collapsed to the floor. "Ryan Shun, you can't do this to me." I leaned against the door frame. "You did the exact same thing to me the day I went to prison." Linda Lynn. She was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Jason Goo reached out to help her up, but she swatted his hand away hard. "Don't touch me." Jason Goo's face twisted. I watched the whole thing. No satisfaction at all. Just felt like it was too late. Way too late. I turned and left. The second the elevator doors slid shut, Ethan Sue handed me his phone. Jojo finished restoring the recording. I tapped play. Jason Goo's voice came through clear. "I'll handle Ryan Shun as soon as he's locked up. Linda Lynn will have no one but me to trust." The elevator drifted down. I stared at the flashing floor numbers. The first domino had finally fallen. I passed the recording to Ethan Sue. He listened to it only 3 times before speaking. "This is good enough to submit as a lead for a retrial application." I asked, "Is it enough?" He shook his head. Not on its own, but it's enough to pry the case open. We still need proof Jason Gu had a direct financial stake in that leak years ago. I pulled out the transfer screenshot Joe gave me. What about this? Ethan Sue's eyes lit up. If we can link this transfer account to Brother Tony, we can blow the whole old case wide open. I asked, where's Brother Tony right now? He flipped through his files. Got 5 years back then. Should still be inside. I smiled. Then let's go pay him a visit. Next day, Ethan Sue and I went to the prison to see Brother Tony. His real name was Tony Zhao. The raid years ago was targeting the smuggling ring he worked for. He saw me through the glass, froze for a second, then grinned. Ryan Shun, you out? I stare back. You know me? He laughed. Know you? You're the poor schmuck who took the fall for Jason Gu. Ethan Sue hit record immediately. Brother Tony didn't care. He leaned back in his chair, drawling. I got a tip back then. Said the raid was moved up. Told me to bolt fast. The tip didn't come from you. It came from a middleman Jason Gu hired. I asked, why did all the evidence point to me later? Brother Tony snickered. 'Cause Jason Gu needed a fall guy. You're tech savvy. He could get access to your home network ahead of time. He had someone plant proxy server traces on your devices. Then got your wife to personally confirm you had the technical skills to pull it off. My fingers curled into fists slowly. I'd guessed it all along, but hearing the truth out loud still felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Ethan Sue asked, do you have proof? Brother Tony? He glanced at me. Yeah, but why should I hand it over? I said, what do you want? He grinned. I want a sentence reduction. Ethan Sue said, if you provide leads that help crack the old case. You can apply for meritorious service per law, or it can be considered for sentencing adjustment. But we don't get to decide the final result. Brother Tony nodded. Deal. I got a recording of a call between Jason Gu and the middleman back then, plus a photo of the payment card. The stuff is at my old place with my mom. When we walked out of the prison, the sky was overcast. Ethan Sue said, if what Brother Tony said is true, Jason Gu didn't just frame you. He's also suspected of leaking classified information, perjury, and taking bribes. I nodded. What about Linda Lin? Ethan Sue shot me a look. Her testimony back then might not amount to a crime, but it's at least gross negligence. I said nothing. This outcome didn't surprise me at all. Linda Lin wasn't the mastermind, but she was the hand that shoved me in there. I got back to the hotel that afternoon, and Linda Lin was already waiting in the lobby. She was pale, her eyes bloodshot. Ryan Shun, I need to see you. I said, not a good time. She blocked my way. I know you want to see Tony Zhao. I stared at her. News travels fast. She spoke in a sharp, urgent tone. He's a criminal. You can't take everything he says as truth. Jason Gu did handle some things improperly back then, but he'd never frame you. I laughed. You still believe him after all this time? Her eyes darted nervously. I don't believe him. I believe in evidence. I pulled up the audio recording on my phone. Jason Gu's voice boomed across the lobby. Once he's locked up, Linda Lin will have no one to trust but me. She froze completely. That's impossible. I cut the recording. Aren't you the one who believes in evidence? Her lips went white. She reached for my phone, but I stepped back. She grabbed at thin air. Ryan Shun, where did you get this recording? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I looked right at her. I told you Jason Gu was shady before I went to prison. She froze. I went on. You said I was only suspicious of him because I was jealous. Tears rolled down her face. I didn't know back then. You didn't want to know. The words nailed her to the spot. People in the lobby started glancing over. Linda Lin finally lowered her voice. Give me some time. I'll get to the bottom of this. I said, no need. She panicked. I'm a cop. I'm way more qualified to look into this than you are. I stared at the uniform on her. Linda Lin, you're the least qualified person for this. Her face went white. Why? Because once you start digging, you'll have to face how badly you've been wrong these past 3 years. She swayed on her feet. I walked past her toward the elevator. She yelled after me, Ryan Shun, if Jason Gu really is dirty, I'll arrest him with my own 2 hands. I didn't turn around. Worry about getting your own together first. Jason Gu's retaliation came fast. That same night, an anonymous post popped up on the local forum. The title read, Released convict Ryan maliciously retaliates against ex-wife cop. Empties their wedding home to drive her to breakdown. The post was dramatic as hell. It claimed I'd become radical and violent after going to prison. That Linda Lynn had waited 3 years for me without starting a new family. That I'd harassed her the second I got out, emptied the house, and even threatened her with the old case to force her to remarry. There were several photos attached. Linda Lynn sobbing on the floor of the empty house. Jason Gu trying to help her up only to be pushed away. And a shot on my back as I stood at the doorway watching coldly. The comment section blew up immediately. Released convicts are so terrifying. That cop ex-wife has it so bad. Waited 3 years for him just to get retaliated against. Emptying the whole house. That's next level petty. Like this should never get let out of prison. When Ethan Sue sent me the post, I was sorting out the address of Brother Tony's mother. I read through it and only said, gather evidence. He said, already did. The post IP is untraceable, but the photo angle looks like it was taken from the building opposite your living room window. I said, Jason Gu. Ethan Sue nodded. Most likely. I laughed. He was in such a rush to paint me as a lunatic. The more desperate he was, the more scared he was. The next morning, Linda Lynn showed up again. She wasn't in uniform this time, standing at the hotel entrance. Her voice hoarse. I didn't post that. I said, I know. Her eyes lit up for a second, but the next moment, I added, but you sure played the crying part pretty well in those photos. Her face went pale. Ryan Shun, do you have to stab me like this? I didn't answer. She pulled a document envelope out of her bag. These are the things I've kept over the past 3 years. Your letters, my prison visit records, and the mission brief for Jason Gu and I. You'll know the truth once you read them. What's between him and I is really not what you think. I didn't take it. Her eyes reddened. You won't even look at them. I said, your innocence doesn't need my validation. Her voice shook. But I want you to know. Histoire de hair. Linda Lynn. The worst pain isn't whether you slept with him or not. She froze. I went on. It's that you stood by his side when I was in prison. She went completely still. That single sentence hit harder than any screaming match. She finally pulled a file bag back slowly. I'll look into Jason Gu. I said, watch your back before you do that. She looked at me, confused. I didn't explain. If Jason Gu could frame me, he could frame her, too. Sure enough, at 4 p.m. Linda Lynn was called in for a talk with her superiors. The reason? There were procedural irregularities in her testimony in the Ryan Shin case back then, and she may have submitted incomplete mission declaration documents during her marriage registration with Jason Gu. Her voice was shaking when she called me. Ryan Shun, they're saying I violated regulations. I was standing on the street, holding the old phone I just picked up from Brother Tony's mother. You said getting the marriage license was just a mission, right? Mission paperwork should be complete. She went silent. I asked, you don't have the full paperwork. Her breathing picked up. Jason Gu said it was an emergency back then. We got the license first, sorted the paperwork later. I shut my eyes for a second. That was so hurt. She always said she trusted evidence. But one emergency line from Jason Gu, and she bought every word of it. Linda Lynn. I said, you didn't get married for the mission. You broke the rules for Jason Gu. Muffled sobs came through the phone. I didn't know this would happen. Now you do. I hung up. That night, data recovery on the old phone was completed. There was an audio recording inside. Jason Gu's voice was crystal clear. Ryan Shun's too good with tech. If we keep digging, he'll trace it back to me sooner or later. Plant the evidence solid before he figures out what's going on. Another man asked, will Officer Lynn buy it? Jason Gu laughed. Of course she will. She hates people questioning her judgment more than anything, especially Ryan Shun. I sat in front of the computer staring at the audio waveform. Ethan Sue sat beside me quiet for a long time. Once this comes out, Jason Gu is done for. I said, not enough. He looked over at me. I opened another file. It was Jason Gu's reimbursement records for utilities, parking fees, and property management fees registered under my house over the years. The reimbursements were drawn from a special mission fund, and the mission filing date was 2 months after I went to prison. In other words, get married first. Move in first. File the mission later. Linda Lynn's so-called innocence didn't hold up even procedurally. Ethan Sue asked, "You're turning this in two?" I said, "Yes." He hesitated. "Then Linda Lynn will get penalized too." I closed my laptop. The consequences she deserved shouldn't be carried by me. The day Linda Lynn was suspended for investigation, Jason Gu didn't go see her. He went to the office and shifted all blame onto her. He said the marriage mission was Linda Lynn's initiative. He said moving into my wedding house was Linda Lynn's prearrangement to stabilize Ryan Shun's mood after his release from prison. He said he was just following orders. When Linda Lynn heard what he said, she was completely stunned. She ran to Jason Gu's office. The door wasn't fully closed. I wasn't on the scene, but someone sent the footage to Ethan Sue. In the footage, Linda Lynn was deathly pale. "Jason Gu, you're saying I was the one who brought it up." Jason Gu sat behind his desk, his tone totally calm. "Linda, someone has to take the fall for the procedural mistakes now. So you're making me take the fall. You're Ryan Shun's ex-wife, and you were a witness in the original case. It makes more sense for you to take the heat than me." It was as if she was seeing him for the first time. "That's not what you said before. You said getting the marriage license was just for the mission. You said all the paperwork would be sorted out properly." Jason Gu looked at her. "I did." Her voice shook. "The filing date is 2 months from now." Jason Gu went silent. Linda Lynn lunged forward, grabbing his collar. "You lied to me." He shook her off violently. "Linda Lynn, don't act like you're some innocent victim. When Ryan Shun suspected me back then, you chose not to believe him. You were the one who brought him the divorce agreement to sign. You were the one who gave that testimony. No one held a gun to your head." The force of the shove sent Linda Lynn slamming into the wall. Jason Gu stood up, straightening his collar. "Now that you regret it, you want to dump all the blame on me." Tears rolled down her face. "I put it behind bars for you." Jason Gu sneered. "You didn't do it for me. You did it for your own glory, for your mission, to prove you weren't wrong about your call." That line broke Linda Lynn completely. She dropped to a squat on the floor, sobbing too hard to speak. The video cut off here. After watching the whole clip, Ethan Sue cursed. "Jason Gu is such a piece of—" I said nothing. He looked at me. "You don't feel bad for her?" I stared at Linda Lynn's disheveled face on the screen. "Feel bad? Maybe 3 years ago I would have. Now, all I think is she finally heard what I've been saying this whole time. She just only believed it when it came out of Jason Gu's mouth." That afternoon, the investigation team officially accepted the evidence Ethan Sue submitted. Jojo came forward as a witness. Brother Tony provided the audio recordings. The forensics report on the old phone's recovered data was finalized. My case entered the retrial review process, and Jason Gu was suspended from duty. When the news broke, Linda Lynn sent me a message. I saw the recordings. I didn't reply. She sent another. "I'm sorry." Still no reply from me. The third message read, "If I believed you just once back then, would you have never gone to prison?" I stared at that line, my fingers hovering over the screen for a long time. Finally, I replied, "Yes." Just that one word. She never texted again. That night, Mia Tsao, Linda Lynn's mother, tracked me down. She'd always looked down on me. Kept saying a tech guy like me didn't deserve her cop daughter. The second she walked in a cafe, she slammed her bag on the table. "Ryan Shun, how far are you going to push Linda?" I looked at her. Aunt Mia, she brought this on herself. She flew into a rage. She married Jason Gu for the mission. Why can't you understand that? A man should be more magnanimous. I laughed. If I married another woman the day your daughter went to prison, would you tell me to be more magnanimous? She choked, unable to speak. I kept going. "The down payment for your retirement apartment. I paid that, right?" Her face shifted. "Why are you bringing that up?" "To remind you. Don't spend my money while calling me ungenerous at the same time." Her face flushed pale, then red. "You volunteered that as a gift to your elder." I nodded. "I volunteered it back then. Not anymore." I pulled out a lawyer's letter. "If you're not willing to negotiate paying that money back, we'll settle this in court." Mia Zhao's voice went shrill. "Ryan Shun, are you insane? You just got out and you want to drive our whole family to ruin." I looked at her. "The day I went to prison, your whole family already treated me like I was dead. Didn't you?" She couldn't say a single word. I stood up and left. I just reached the door when I saw Linda Lynn standing there. She must have heard everything. Her face was deathly pale, eyes swimming with tears. Ryan Shun, I'll pay back the money my mom owes you. I said, talk to my lawyer. She choked back a sob. You won't even say one extra word to me now. I looked at her. There's nothing left to say between us. Hasn't been for a long time. The day my retrial review was approved, I stood at the courthouse entrance staring at the notice. My hands were perfectly steady. 3 years. The day I've been waiting for is finally here. Dozens of reporters showed up. One asked me, Mr. Shun, if the verdict gets overturned, who do you want to talk to most? And what would you say? I answered, myself. I was right to stay alive. The crowd went dead, quiet for a full second. Then flash bulbs exploded everywhere. Linda Lynn stood outside the crowd in plain clothes. Her eyes bloodshot. She tried to walk over, but investigators stopped her. She was a person of interest now. Contact with me was off limits. I glanced at her, then looked away immediately. At the pre-trial hearing, I came face to face with Jason Gu for the first time. He wore a dark coat, his face schooled into forced calm. When he saw me, he even smiled. Ryan Shun, you moved fast once you got out. I stared right back. It's your turn to go in. His eyes went icy. Don't get cocky. A couple of audio clips prove nothing. I nodded. That's why we also have transfer records, call logs, system logs, and the backdated mission file you forged. His face finally fell. Once the hearing started, Ethan Sue submitted evidence one by one. 1. Original system logs confirm my computer was remotely controlled at the exact time the leaked data was uploaded years ago. 2. The proxy IP used for the remote control is linked to the temporary SIM card Jason Gu once used. 3. Audio clips and transfer records provided by brother Tony confirm Jason Gu passed Operation Intel through a middleman. 4. Linda Lynn's original testimony only confirmed I had the technical skills to leak the data. Not that I did so intentionally. Jason Gu used it as the core evidence to push for my conviction. 5. The mission file for the marriage registration is suspected of being backdated. Every piece of evidence hit Jason Gu like a sledgehammer to the face. He stayed calm at first. Then cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Finally, he turned to look at Linda Lynn, who sat in the gallery. Face ashen, he looked like he still expected her to stand up and defend him. She didn't. She just stared at the evidence on the table, tears streaming down her face nonstop. When it was her turn to testify, she stood up, her voice so hoarse it was almost inaudible. I made a wrong judgment back then. I didn't fully verify the leads Jason Gu provided, and I didn't push to reinvestigate the doubts Ryan Shun raised. She paused, then looked up at me. I have wronged him. Jason Gu's face twisted violently. Linda Lynn, are you out of your mind? The judge banged his gavel. Order in the court. Linda Lynn continued. Regarding the marriage registration mission, I admit there were procedural violations. The actual registration date was earlier than the date on the filed record. Moving into Ryan Shun's premarital property was not an organizational arrangement. Either. It was my own wrong decision. The court erupted in murmurs. Jason Gu completely lost his cool. Linda Lynn, you're pinning all the blame on me. You were the one who signed the papers. Linda Lynn closed her eyes. I'll take responsibility for what I did. You won't get away with yours. I stared at her. For the first time in 3 years. She didn't mention the word mission. After the hearing ended, Jason Gu was placed under travel restriction. The retrial was officially launched. Linda Lynn walked towards me, but Ethan Sue stopped her. She stopped 2 steps away. Ryan Shun, I know it's too late to say anything now. I said, then don't. Tears fell again. I just want to tell you I'll cooperate with the investigation. I nodded. That's the least you can do. Her face went pale. It was a cold thing to say, but it was the truth. I didn't know her gratitude just because she finally did the right thing. A late correction doesn't erase past mistakes. I walked out of the courthouse. The sunlight outside was blinding. Ethan Sue asked me, how do you feel? I thought for a second, like I just climbed out of a well. He smiled, then keep moving forward. I was just about to get in the car when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I picked up and Jason Gu's voice came through. Ryan Shun, let's meet. I laughed. You scared? He went silent for 2 seconds. Name your price. We can negotiate. I said, I want you behind bars. His breath hitched instantly. I hung up. This time, it was his turn to wait for the iron cell door to slam shut. The place Jason Gu picked for our meeting was an abandoned auto repair shop. Ethan Sue tried to talk me out of going. I said, he's already panicking. He'll slip up. So I brought a voice recorder and reported my whereabouts to the authorities beforehand. The shop was pitch black inside. Jason Gu stood next to a totaled car, a cigarette pinched between his fingers. The second he saw me, his first line was, "You're one tough son of a bitch." I stopped 5 m away from him. "You talk way too much shit." He smirked, his eyes cold and vicious. "Ryan Shun, you think a retrial's going to overturn the verdict? Don't forget, most of the evidence went through official channels back then. Even if I'm caught, you're not going to walk away completely clean." I said, "Is that why you're so desperate to see me?" His face dropped. "I can pay you off." I laughed. "How much? 5 million? 3 years of my life for 5 million? He ground his teeth. 10 million. I took a step closer. "Jason Gu, do you really think everything has a price tag?" He said, "When you get out of prison, you move on. If you blow this up, Linda Lynn goes down. 2. I stared at him. "You're using her to threaten me." He laughed. "You love her, don't you?" I laughed. 2. Your intel's ancient." His smile froze. I continued, "What happens to her is her business. Taking you down, that's mine." Jason Gu's face turned completely dark. "Ryan Shun, don't push me." I said, "What are you going to do? Frame me again?" He didn't answer, just pulled a stack of photos out of his pocket. They were shots of me meeting Jojo, Brother Tony's mom, and Ethan Sue after I got out of prison. He was trying to prove I was colluding with witnesses to falsify testimony. I glanced at them. "Nice shots." He frowned. I said, "You stalked a retrial applicant and his witnesses. Hand these in. They're way more useful than you think." He realized he'd slipped up and tried to yank the photos back immediately. I put my hand down to stop him. "Easy." Footsteps sounded from the distance. 2 investigators stepped out of the shadows. Jason Gu's face drained of color. "You called the cops." I said, "I just filed a report." "You walked in here with the evidence yourself." The investigators moved in, ordering him to cooperate. Jason Gu snapped all of a sudden, lunging at me to grab the voice recorder. I dodged to the side. He was still screaming insults when they pinned him to the ground. "Ryan Shun, you're a loser. You're nothing without Linda Lynn." I squatted down, looking right at him. "I'm doing just fine without her." His face looked like he'd just been slapped. That night, Jason Gu was officially taken into custody. Witness stalking, attempted retrial obstruction, suspected perjury, and classified information leaks in the old case. All the charges lined up, and he had zero way out. When the news got out, Linda Lynn showed up outside the repair shop. She stood behind the police tape, watching as Jason Gu was led away. When he passed her, he suddenly laughed. "Linda, happy now? You ruined me for Ryan Shun." Linda Lynn stared at him. No hatred in her eyes, only emptiness. "He didn't ruin you. You did this to yourself." Jason Gu sneered. "You got a lot of nerve talking to me like that. He begged you to believe him back then. Did you?" Linda Lynn's face went deathly pale. Jason Gu kept twisting a knife. "You thought he was in the way, too, didn't you? You thought he didn't understand your job, right? You loved having me tag along on your missions, your work events, staying in his apartment with you. Admit it." Linda Lynn swayed on her feet. I stood a short distance away, didn't move towards her. Jason Gu was shoved into the police car. Linda Lynn squatted down by the curb, covering her face and sobbing. She finally saw the truth. But by the time she did, no one was waiting for her anymore. The day my retrial verdict came down, Linda Lynn called me 23 times. I didn't answer a single one. The court announced the original verdict was overturned. Severe flaws were confirmed in the case evidence. Multiple key pieces had been deliberately planted. I was innocent of all charges I'd been convicted of. When the word innocent dropped, I didn't cry. I just stared down at my hands. The day they cuffed me 3 years ago, I thought these hands would never be clean again. Now, they were finally mine. Ethan Sue clapped me on the shoulder. "Congratulations. Ryan Shun. I said, thanks. Reporters swarmed. Mr. Shun, will you pursue accountability next? Yes. Including your ex-wife Linda Lynn? I paused for a beat. Everyone who deserves to be held responsible. That line blew up across the internet instantly. Linda Lynn was waiting for me outside the courthouse. She wore a black wool coat, hair wind-tousled, clutching an old photo album. She spotted me and walked over fast. Ryan Shun. I stopped. Her eyes were red-rimmed. You're finally cleared. I hummed. MHM. She gave a wobbly, tearful smile. That's great. That's so great. I looked straight at her. Probably not great for you. Though, her face drained of color. I know. I'll take whatever punishment they give me. I'll cooperate with the investigation. But Ryan Shun. Can we start over? I thought I misheard. She flipped the album open in a panic. It was full of photos from when we were dating. The college sports field. Our tiny rental apartment. The day we renovated our first house. She was wearing a hard hat, grinning in the bare concrete shell. She turned page after page, tears dripping onto the paper. I know I messed up so bad. I know you hate me. But Jason Gu and I never consummated the marriage. Getting the license was just a job. I'm still pure. Not that line again. Histoire de hair. A wave of exhaustion hitting me. Linda Lynn, why do you always think this is what I care about? She froze. I said, whether you slept with him or not doesn't matter anymore. Her face went as white as a sheet. How can it not matter? I never cheated on you physically. You betrayed my trust. She went completely rigid. I kept going. The night they took me away. You didn't believe me. The day of the trial. You didn't believe me. The 3 years I was in prison. You never even tried to dig up proof of my innocence. The day I got out. Your first line was asking me to understand why you married Jason Gu. Tears streamed down her face nonstop. I said, you kept your so-called purity, but you destroyed my life. She swayed on her feet. Ryan Shun, I'll make it up to you. I laughed. With what? She choked out. I'll quit my job. I'll make a public apology. I'll give the house back to you. I don't want anything else. Just give me one more chance. I shook my head. The house was always mine. All the blood drained from her face. I turned to leave. She suddenly lunged forward, wrapping her arms around me from behind. Ryan Shun, please, let's get remarried. Reporters were everywhere. Flashbulbs went off like crazy. I pried her fingers off one by one, exactly like I did the day I got out of prison. She was sobbing so hard she could barely stand. You used to say no matter what mistake I made, you'd always take me home. I looked back at her. That was before. What about now? Now, the house is empty. She froze. I didn't look at her again. That night, the video of her begging me to remarry hit the top of the trending list. Some called her trash who got what she deserved. Some said she was pathetic. Some called me heartless. I didn't read any of it. I went to that house. It had been fully renovated. The spot where our wedding photo used to hang now held a blank canvas. I'd planted new gardenias on the balcony. This time, I'd take care of them myself. The next morning, Linda Lynn went to the old house. She probably thought I'd only taken a few things. But when she opened the door, all she saw was a completely empty room. No wedding photos, no couch, no piano, none of the mugs she'd bought. No trace left of the life we used to share. Even the door lock had been changed. The cleaning lady told her, Mr. Shun finished the handover yesterday. No unauthorized personnel will be allowed in here from now on. Linda Lynn stood at the doorway and suddenly let out a broken, hysterical cry. On the security footage, she slowly squatted down, clutching the photo album, sobbing so hard she nearly passed out. This time, Jason Gu wasn't there to catch her, and neither was I. The day Linda Lynn got her official disciplinary punishment, it was freezing cold. She was stripped of her honorary titles, suspended from her post, and placed under further investigation. Jason Gu's case also entered the prosecution phase. He was charged with perjury, leaking operation intel, bribery, and framing others. The old Brother Dow case was also reopened for full reinvestigation. I sat in the law firm signing document after document. First, the state compensation application. Second, the reputational damage lawsuit. Third, the incidental civil compensation claim against Jason Gu. Fourth, the settlement of rent. Property damage and asset losses incurred during Linda Lynn's illegal occupation of my premarital property. Ethan Sue asked me, "Are you really going to nitpick every last cent with Linda Lynn over this part?" I said, "She lived there for 3 years. She might break down." I looked up at him. I broke down in there. 2. Ethan Sue didn't push it further. In the afternoon, Linda Lynn showed up at the law firm. She looked way thinner than before. She sat across from me. No makeup on. Dark circles heavy under her eyes. Ethan Sue handed her the settlement documents. She flipped them open and stared for a long time. Occupancy fee, furniture damage, property management fee, renovation restoration cost. She trailed off mid-read, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Ryan Shun, do we really have to do this to each other?" I said, "Yes." She looked up at me. "You never used to quibble over money with me before." I nodded. "That's why you two thought you could spend whatever you wanted. No questions asked." Her face went white. I kept going. "The retirement department, your mom. Mia Tsao. Lives will be handled as a separate case based on the nature of the transfers. If she's willing to negotiate, we'll sign a repayment plan. If not, we sue." She said hurriedly, "I'll pay it back." I said, "That's her debt, not yours. But she's my mom. Then what was I to you?" She went silent. She didn't have the right to answer that question anymore. She lowered her head, fingers crumpling the edge of the paper. "I'll sign it." Her hand shook the entire time she signed. When she finished, she put the pen down. "Ryan Shun, can I ask you one last question?" I didn't say a word. She asked anyway, not waiting for my permission. "If I had trusted you just once back then, will we still have a home together?" I looked at her. Yes. Tears burst out of her instantly. That single word hurt worse than any insult. It told her she had once had everything, and she'd thrown it all away with her own hands. She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with sobs. I didn't hand her a tissue. Ethan Sue did. She took it and mumbled, "Thank you," before she left. She suddenly pulled a set of keys out her bag. "These are the old keys to your place. I kept them all this time." I said, "The lock's been changed." Her hand froze midair. After a few seconds, she slowly pulled it back. "I know." She walked to the door, then paused. "Ryan Shun, I'm going to move out of this city." I said, "Safe travels." She looked back at me. The last glimmer of hope in her eyes died out. I showed up to Jason Goo's trial. I wasn't there to gloat over his humiliation. I was there to get closure for the old me. He stood in the defendant's box, face ashen, no trace left of the elite police officer he used to be. The prosecution read out the facts one by one. How he passed intel to Brother Tony through a middleman. How he planted false decoy evidence beforehand. How he used Linda Lynn's trust in him to shift all suspicion onto me. How he married Linda Lynn under the pretense of a mission after I was locked up and moved into my premarital property. Every word hit like a nail. Linda Lynn was there, too. She was sitting in the back row, deathly pale. When Jason Goose spotted her, he smirked out of nowhere. "Happy now, Linda Lynn?" The judge warned him to cut the crap, but he had nothing left to lose and spoke right up. "I admit I framed Ryan Shun, but Linda Lynn isn't innocent either. She had every chance to dig into the truth, and she didn't. She knew Ryan Shun kept proclaiming his innocence, and she didn't listen. She didn't trust me. She trusted that she could never be wrong." Linda Lynn flinched hard. I didn't turn to look at her. Jason Gu went on, "You think you won. Ryan Shun, you did 3 years inside. She's never going to be yours again. None of us won." I stared at him. "You're wrong." He glared right back. I said, "I want myself back." His face went stone cold. The trial dragged on all day. Jason Gu was charged with multiple counts, pending formal sentencing. When court adjourned, he was being escorted out when he stopped dead right next to me. The hatred in his eyes was gone. Only utter humiliation left. "Cut me some slack. Ryan Shun." I held his gaze. Back when I was being taken away, he stood at the end of the hallway and said, "Don't blame Linda. She just made the right call." Now he was begging me to cut him a break. I said, "You burned that bridge yourself." They dragged him off. The heavy metal door clanged shut. I stood there listening for a long time. The sound was exactly the same as it was 3 years ago. Only this time, I wasn't the one on the other side. When I walked out of the courthouse, Linda Lynn caught up to me. She wasn't crying, just staring at me. I'm leaving tomorrow. Ryan Shun. I nodded. She said, I'm going to work at the grassroots level in the Northwest. Start over from scratch. I said, good for you. She gave a bitter laugh. You're still as cold as ever. I looked at her. Water only gets cold when it's frozen through. Linda Lynn. Her eyes welled up. Can it thaw? I didn't answer. She already knew the answer anyway. She pulled a photo out of her bag. It was from our wedding day. She was in a wedding dress, grinning from ear to ear, and I was standing next to her, my eyes only for her. Can I keep this? I said, whatever you want. She mumbled, thanks. Wind swept through the courthouse entrance. She suddenly saluted me. Not a wife saluting her husband. It was a person who'd made a mistake, saluting the person she'd hurt. I'm sorry. Ryan Shun. I looked at her, gave a small nod. Received. Her tears finally fell, but she didn't beg again. This time, she turned and left. I turned, too. We walked in opposite directions. Neither of us looked back. A year later, my new company moved into the Nanking Science and Technology Park. It wasn't a big firm, focused exclusively on secure audit systems for judicial electronic evidence. I'd spent 3 years in prison refining this idea. If the evidence chain had been transparent enough back then, if logs couldn't be planted arbitrarily, if every access left a tamper-proof record, I would never have been taken down that easily. I can't change the past, but I can stop other people from going through the same hell I did. On launch day, Ethan Sue sent a plaque with 4 characters on it. Evidence is irrefutable. I teased him for being corny. He said, corny's good. Everyone gets it. Jojo showed up, too. He's not laying low anymore. His noodle shop's back open. His daughter got into college. He squeezed my hand and said, Ryan Shun, you really crawled out of hell. Huh? I said, lucky I didn't fall all the way in. The day the state compensation hit my account, I didn't throw a big celebration. I donated part of it to the legal aid fund for ex-convicts and pumped the rest into the company. Someone asked me once, don't you hate them? I said, I used to. What about now? Now I'm too busy. Busy with work. Busy with life. Busy building my own life back from scratch again. Linda Lynn sent me a letter later. It was postmarked from the Northwest. She said the wind there was brutal and the nights were freezing. She said she started out as a lowest-ranking patrol officer and finally understood how crushing a wrongful accusation against an ordinary person could be. She didn't dare ask for my forgiveness. All she wanted was that one day when I heard her name, I wouldn't feel sick to my stomach anymore. At the end of the letter, she wrote, Ryan Shun, I once had a family. I threw it away with my own 2 hands. I finished reading, put the letter in a drawer, and didn't write back. Some things don't need a response. You don't have to walk back into the past once you know the truth. Mia Zhaoan never came looking for me again after she paid back the money. I heard she moved to the Northwest with Linda Lynn. When Jason Gu's verdict came down, he got slammed with a long sentence. His appeal got thrown out immediately. I didn't bother checking the result myself. When Ethan Sue told me about it, I only said, got it. I went back to my newly renovated apartment that night. The living room lights turned on automatically the second I pushed the door open. The city's night skyline spread out beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The gardenias on the balcony were in bloom, their white petals so clean they almost glowed. I changed my shoes and walked to the balcony to water the flowers. When they hauled me into the police van 3 years ago, I thought I'd never get to come home again. I learned later that home isn't a place where someone waits for you. It's a place no one can ever kick you out of. My phone rang suddenly. It was Ethan Sue. Boss Ryan, tomorrow's press conference is all set. The media is going to eat up this electronic evidence security system built by you. The man who was wrongfully convicted and later exonerated. I said, don't use my sob story for clout. He laughed. Relax. We're selling expertise, not trauma. I hung up, sat on the couch, and turned on the TV. The news anchor was reporting a new regulation. Storage and review procedures for electronic evidence would be strictly tightened from now on. I smiled watching the screen. All the darkness that once crushed me had finally become fuel for me to keep moving forward. The doorbell rang once. I opened the door, and the courier handed me a small package. The sender was Linda Lynn. Inside the box was that old wedding ring from years back. plus a note that read, "I'm really returning it to you this time. Wish you peace and happiness for the rest of your life." I stared at the ring, turned, and walked to the balcony, and dropped it into an old metal box. The box already held a copy of the verdict from 3 years ago, a memory card, my release papers, and a not guilty verdict. They weren't wounds anymore. They were just proof. Proof that I was once pushed all the way down, and proof that I climbed all the way back up. I turned off the lights when it got late. The city outside the window was still lit up. I stood by the door, glancing at this home that belonged entirely to me. No Linda Lynn here. No Jason Goo. No old wedding photos. No belated explanations or tears from anyone. Just clean floors, a quiet couch, and a gardenias on the balcony blooming perfectly.